Hi and welcome to Jessie James Beads. How are you doing today? I hope that your day has been wonderful in whatever way is meaningful to yourself. Whether that's just getting out for a breath of fresh air, seeing somebody you love, having a bit of a chat, crafting, making jewellery, I don't know, knitting, crocheting, whatever it is that makes you happy. I hope you've had a little bit of that today. We had a beautiful full moon just last night and I hope that you managed to get to see some of that as well. Absolutely stunning. My name is Jem. If we haven't met before, I live in the UK and I make wire jewellery. So today we're going to be focusing on all things red, which is absolutely wonderful. It's a little bit of an early Valentine's treat, whether you're celebrating or conscientiously ignoring the impending day. Red is one of my favourite colours. Purple is my number one by a little bit. Always has been, always will be. But I have a soft spot for the colour red. It makes its way into my wardrobe and it's a bit of a power colour, to be honest. I spent very many years wearing nothing but black. So to add a splash of red is a real lift to my spirits, to my energy. Makes me feel kind of cool as well. So there's a little bit of a nifty offer. If you head over to jessiejamesbeads.com, you will see on the main banner on the page that by spending a certain amount you can get a little bit off. Have a quick look over on the website and you'll see some of the offers that we've got available, including a special deal on all things red. Now for today we're going to be working with a paperclip chain in Holly Jolly, and I love it most of all because it's beautiful, but I also love it because it's got just a wonderful name. We'll also be using Window Box in red, an absolutely stunning array of beads, and it's an almost endless mix. I'll show you how much I've used and how much is left over, creating this, I think, really attractive cascade necklace. And when it's on the neckline it feels utterly sumptuous. We're also going to be adding in 8mm Czech pearls and Garnet fire polish, I think they're called. I'll show you the details, but I have popped the link down in the video description here on Facebook today, so you'll be able to hop over and grab any of those into your basket. I'm going to be adding in some 18 gauge round wire in a medium temper. Why don't we head down to the board and take a look at the project we're going to be working on together. Let's just press some buttons. Here we go. That's what we're going to be making today. And this is one of the boxes that we're going to be using. So this is a window box. You can see it comes in a little package like so, with a little lens over the front to keep everything safe. You get an array of golden toned goodies. So you've got lots of spacer beads, these pumpkin beads. We've got beautiful metallic large rondelles, which are great to work with. You've got some highly detailed large oval spacers, which really make a difference on the wrist as well as at the neckline. You've got the ever wonderful, I call them daisy spacers, I don't know what you call them, but I think they're adorable. And if you stack them up, really stack them up, you can get them to make this double clustering effect, like so. They're really lovely, but you get a plethora of all things red. So you've got a wonderful array of different sizes. You have opaque beads as well as translucent beads. You've got large beads. In fact, I'm just going to steal one of those and pop it in my dish for now so that we can have a look at those a little bit closer. You've got large rice beads. You've got fun, fruity, almost like a little bit of a flower. Those are really cool. And you've also got metallics. So I used one of the toggle clasps in the piece that we'll be working to creating today. That came out of this window box as well. But you've got a second one in there, which is really nicely detailed as well. And that's in a shiny gold to boot. You also have these fabulous drops, which just put onto a pair of earring findings, instant glamour earrings. Those are an unbelievable price as well, in my opinion. I can see a comment from Debbie. That means Facebook's being my friend today. Hi Debbie, how are you? How's the weather where you are in the world? It's a little bit nippy here today, but not as cold as it has been. In Fahrenheit, I worked it out before coming to air. It's around about 46 degrees Fahrenheit. It's around about sort of 8.5 degrees Celsius. Hi Roberta, welcome. I hope that you are keeping well, my lovely. Absolutely fabulous to have your company. So we're going to be using the red window bead box, which is gorgeous. We're also going to be using Czech Fire Polish 8mm garnets, and also the Czech Garnet pearls. Now, I've repurposed some bead boxes I had from other collections. Let me just open that lid so you don't get the glare so much. So we're going to be working with a couple of those as well, and they team beautifully with that Holly Jolly paperclip chain, which I absolutely adore. It's got to be my top 10 of Jessie James Beads chains. I absolutely love the hint of, I guess it's enamel, I don't really know, I'm not a metallurgist, but it's a really beautiful, vibrant, fiery red added onto that chain. So we're going to grab a couple of those out to demonstrate with. Now, when you're working with the pearls on the 18 gauge round wire, which we'll be using today, it's a little bit tougher to get that wire to go through the centre of the bead, but if you just move that pearl, and they're faux pearls, so suitable for use by vegans, if you just give that a wiggle as you move it along, it will sit where you want it to. It's just a tiny bit trickier to get going, however they work beautifully on that 18 gauge wire. So let's pop that back out of the way for a second, and I've already grabbed those out, I don't need to grab another one. Let's pop that there for now. So those are the components that we're working with today. From that window bead box, I've drawn out some of the materials that we'll be using today. It's cold and rainy in California, says Anne. Welcome, Anne. I hope that you're keeping well, my lovely. Sorry to hear it's a bit cool and rainy in California. You can't have all the good weather all the time. Some of us occasionally need it as well. I'm always super jealous. So I'm just going to show you the ends of the beautiful Holly Jolly chain. I found that I had some really heavy duty copper colour jump rings in my stash, and I used those just to add on that toggle clasp that comes in the bead box red, that window bead box. Shakisha's in. Hello, hello, darling. I hope that you are keeping well. Debbie says it's finally warming up from -18 and winds over 40 miles an hour to around 50 degrees, so I'm very happy. That's nearly what we've got here, so I'm happy for you. Shakisha, welcome, my darling. It's lovely to see you. I love the red on that enamel chain paired with those beads. Looks amazing. I adore the difference between the pearl effect bead and the fire polish bead. The juxtaposition of that super sultry dark and pearlescent finish with the sheeny, shiny crystal finish, I think those two are a match made in heaven. I will absolutely 100% be using that combination again. So from the bead box, I pulled out some of the smaller golden spaces, some of the tiny rondelles that are opaque, and some of the slightly larger rondelles which are translucent. So let's just make little piles. I've got 6 of the opaque and 6 of the slightly larger translucent. I've also got 6 of the spacers, 2 little bead caps, 1 of the slightly larger beads, and that's all from that fantastic red window bead box mix. Heatwave, says Shakisha. I bet. 56 in Virginia. I can't see because my light's in the way. My favourite colour is red. Well, hopefully you're going to enjoy today then, because it's all about red. It's all about the red. Hello, Kate. How are you today? I hope that you are well, my lovely. Thank you for hanging out with us on today's live. So as I mentioned, you also get this toggle clasp in window box red, which teams perfectly with that Holly Jolly chain. It's my new favourite chain. Absolutely love it. So we're going to focus on 2 main techniques today. The first technique, if I just scooch this up to the corner, is the focal section, which is this little fella here, and we will be using that 18 gauge round wire. So I've cut around about 10 inches of the 18 gauge round, and I'm using a medium temper wire today. If you only have soft, that's absolutely fine. It's not a major drama. What I'm going to do is unfurl, and again, apologies in advance for the noise, unfurl the Velcro on my wonderful wooden mandrel set, and I'm going to pick, I think, this one. So this is 15.8 millimeters. It's the 3rd largest, and if you haven't seen them, They come in a little section like this that velcros up, and you get 6 different wooden mandrels. They are absolutely fabulous. I believe there's still availability on those on the JJ James Beads website. The chain I'm using is linked in the description, and it's Holly Jolly Paperclip. All of the links for the products that I'm using today, apart from the wire, are in the video description. So we've got some beautiful 8mm fire polish Czech Garnet colour, and we've also got the pearls, also 8mm. Now if you don't have a mandrel, you could use a ring mandrel, you could use anything round from around your house. Let's just pop that up to the middle for a second. Whenever we're working with wire, what we're going to do is grab even, that's the word grab and the word grip smashed together. In case you were wondering what I was saying, my brain hasn't been braining very hard today, so I'm smashing words together that don't belong. So let's just run thumb and forefinger either side of that wire. Just 3 times is enough. Drawing that quite firmly will warm that wire, especially if you've got super chilly temperatures like many of you have mentioned. And I'm going to use the middle size. If you don't have one of these, the lid of a nail varnish pot, or if you have a slightly larger lip balm or lotion bottle or anything like that, we're going to find approximately 2/3 along from one end. So the piece of wire is between 10 and 12 inches. I'm going to make a little kind of pear shape to begin with. Now what I don't want to do is to make that too tight, because the beads that we're using are quite small, and what we don't want to do is put them under too much stress. So all the words always belong, and they're technical terms. I am absolutely enamoured to hear that, Shakusha. Thank you very much, my love. If I say a thing, there's probably a reason for it, but sometimes there's not. So what you can find when you've got very tiny beads is that they don't particularly want to go round sharp bends on wire. So we're going to start from the shorter end. You've got a longer tail on one side and a shorter tail on the other. And we're going to see what we can load on without causing any dramas. So we're going to start with 3 of the smaller, and these are opaque beads, and see if they want to go on. And if they won't, we will simply use a smaller number of those beads. All of the ones that I have on the demonstration piece, naturally enough, went on without any dramas. So those 2 have gone on absolutely fine. So what we're going to do is just use 2 of the smaller beads at either end. You obviously have the whole window box to use. Now what can happen if you've got that bend in position as we've just created, sometimes the beads just don't want to go. So if you open that back out a little bit, you can find that the beads will move round. Your other option is to start from the other side and see how things move in that direction. What I'm unwilling to do is put too much stress on any of those beads. So what we shall do is we will work through now with one of the spacers, and I'm going to work from the other end. So I'm going to go on the long tail of wire, pop a spacer on, and then we're going to go for one of those slightly larger faceted rondelle beads, and these are all from the Window Box collection in red. So you can see we're just recreating that horseshoe shape down at the bottom, and if you have beads that just don't want to, my advice is to not try and make them. The last thing you want to do is to shatter a bead when it will perfectly adequately go on a thinner wire for a different project. Naturally enough, when I was creating this piece before coming to air, and I'm going to add in the next one, everything went on the wire without any dramas whatsoever. Now these are all moving around that little U shape down at the bottom without any dramas. So I'm going to go for another one of those golden little floral spacer beads, and then we'll go for the 3rd of the slightly larger opaque beads. Drop that down into the base position. So just move that around until it sits down at the bottom, and you may find that you just can't get the beads to sit because of the curvature. So these will have a machined hole, and the hole tends to be just the right size. So if some of them are slightly smaller, just don't worry about it, move on to using it in a different way. So I'm going to now add on one of the little bead caps in that direction, so that we can highlight the largest bead we're going to use on that little U shape. So let's bring that one down into position. So that needs to sit down at the bottom of that U shape. If you're struggling with the beads going on the wire, you can just open that back out and we'll very gently form the wire afterwards. So in order to highlight that central bead, we're going to add that second bead cap. So I'm just going to bring the end of the wire down, and we'll just feed all of those beads on in the correct order. So we've got 3 of these interspersed with those golden spacers. That's 1 bead. Can you see that sliding down into position? And then we've got the second bead, adding that next spacer into position, and I adore working red and gold together. It's sumptuous, it's luxurious, absolutely love it. So we're going to add in that third and final golden spacer on this side. You could of course use those large daisy spacers if you prefer. You've got lots of choices, and if you want to recreate this in a slightly different way, you've got these wonderful pumpkin type beads as well, so you can use whatever variation of beads you fancy. Let's pop that one back out of the way and start and see if these teeny tiny beads want to go on the wire. Sometimes the bead just says no, and we have to respect that. So that one's absolutely fine, that one's absolutely fine. So I'm just going to move those 2 teeny ones out of the way and just slide those round into the middle, or that little U-bend. Do you remember we started about 2/3 of the way along? So we've got 1 long side and 1 short side. So what we're going to do now is very gently form this little horseshoe shape again. And what I tend to do is just allow the wire to cross over. Let's make sure that's in the light. And we're just going to get those 2 wires to cross over one another. What we don't want to do is to make any very fast movements. If you're making fast movements with crystal beads, sometimes you can shatter a bead, but more often than not, your wire will just go wonky. You'll have one side that looks beautiful and then the other side just not quite so much. So this is going to be a slightly smaller design because we're just going to be using 2 of those teeny beads instead of the 3 I have on the display model. So what we are going to do now is use the shorter side. So we've got the longer side over there and we've got the shorter side just here. We're going to use the shorter side to create an upright. So if I just bring those pliers underneath, I might need to just put it on the other wire like so. Just past the point where those 2 wires are going to cross over, I'm going to create an upright, and then I'll just draw that other wire back into position so you can see. And you do have a little flexibility in moving those beads around, but that's what we're looking for. Tiny bit of a gap at the end on either side, and then the shorter wire becomes the upright. Now that can become either a wrapped loop or it can become an open and closable loop, really whatever is your preference. And I'm going to show you both of those options. I'm sure you may have made them before if you've been here at Jessie James Beads before with me. We do talk about wrapped loops quite a lot. So with the second wire, the one that's much longer, what we're going to do is, again, we're leaving a little bit of a space up at the top, and I'm going to turn that wire sideways so it goes away. If you imagine we're looking at a clock face, I've got the shorter wire becoming an upright at 12 o'clock. So just give that a quick straighten through. And then the longer wire is peering off at the 9 o'clock position. So you can make it in the opposite direction if it's easier for you, if you are a southpaw, or if you just prefer to make it in the other direction. Doesn't really matter one way or the other. I'm just trying to describe to you what you're seeing on screen right now. So what we're going to do now is to go for 3 little wraps around the shorter upright. 2 things that will make your life easier here. First of all, we know that this first inch of that upright wire is going to stay in a straight line. So I'm going to apply some work hardening just by opening and closing my pliers quite softly but meaningfully on that first inch or so of upright wire. That gives the wire a little bit more strength and rigidity and will definitely help us out. For the second part of this first procedure, we're going to create a coil of wire using the longer tail of wire. And if I hold that wire just at the shoulder, this is the wire we're going to be wrapping around that upright, and we need to control that. So just past where that angle changes, so we've got the wire going around in that sort of oval or pear shape, and then it immediately turns off to the left. I'm going to grip that wire just past that point and turn it all the way over the top. And if I show you that now, what we're doing is we're making a hook, and that hook sits around the upright wire. keeping everything nice and centralised with your focal bead section. Now the reason I've put a little bit of extra space in that design, if I flip that over, there's a bit of a gap just here between where the angle changes and where the wire turns back around in that hook shape. And the reason I do that is because when I start to draw this wire around, quite often we will lose that little spare bit. So having a little spare bit to begin with is ideal. Let me just make sure that that's absolutely in the light. And as I draw that wire around for a third time, and I'm pressing downwards to try and get a neater coil as possible, you'll see that that little bit of extra has shrunk. And that's because as we pull this tail of wire, it starts to travel around that core. Now I'm going to cover up those beads with my thumbnail so that I can make sure that that coil is nice and neat and tidy. Now I use my hands in making jewellery and all sorts of things every day, so they're not the most pristine of hands, and I would rather protect my beads and not worry about my nail. If you are sensitive about your nails or you have very soft nails, you might like to just proceed very, very cautiously. And we're also going to very, very gently squish the wire sideways. So far we've given ourselves that little shape, and you'll notice that my upright has gone off at a bit of a wonky angle, and that's really easy to fix. I'm just going to grip across and just pull that slightly. If I pop that down on the board, you'll see that that now is going gloriously straight and upwards again. So the next thing that we are going to do is to choose what large flat bead we want to form part of that focal drop. So I've got two for you to choose from. If you'd like to make a choice, let me know which one you prefer. I've got a hexagon in a beautiful matte, almost metallic step faceted bead, or I have this beautiful round faceted bead, and this has got kite shapes, diamond shapes, and oh, I don't even know what that one's called. It's a 5-pointed shape, but only 3 of the sides are equal. Don't even know what it's called. So Anne has voted for the round red. Anne got in there first, so that's the one we're going to do. And sparkly crystal round from Roberta. Luckily for you, you guys chose the same one, so that's always a win. So we're going to add on the sparkly round crystal. Sorry, Robin, I saw the other two first, so that's the one we're going for, but you've got this one to think about. So both of these beads will fit on that 18 gauge copper wire. I'm just going to give that a smooth through. Now, if you're not used to working with wire, it might be surprising to learn that any activity that takes place here starts to harden up the wire just here. The excited electrons just tend to pass that energy along, and what we need to do is just to re-warm the wire just further along a little bit. Now, if you're working with the hexagon shape, you'll need to be sure to trace your steps by allowing the wire to come out to the side and then using your pliers to create a point, and then you pull the wire firmly upwards to get that shaping when you get to the side. And what you will do is spin the bead around so the bead is kept safe, drop that back down again, pop your pliers back in and push firmly to create those firm angles. If that's the one that you want to use, that's how you can achieve that look. Let's just pop that back up to the top for now. We've gone for the round sparkly one, so I'm just going to give that a little warm through just once. Ideally, it's better to keep that wire slightly firmer, but we're going to use the round bead now. So again, make sure that you warm that wire through so it's ready to obey you. Pull your bead into position, and then just going to draw that wire all the way around the outside of the bead. So you see how I warmed the wire? It becomes butter soft, and you can literally just trace around the edge of the bead to get that shape. So again, a little bit of firmness in your core wire is not a bad thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use that round bead to help me. So I'm going to very firmly ensure that that section of wire that goes around the outside edge stays on the outside edge. And then I'm going to draw the tail of wire 3 times around the core again. Now just take your time, don't rush, and you'll be able to get a really nice, neat finish. Give that a squish, push that down, and you'll see that we've got a tracing of wire around one side. So I think actually I'd like another turn of wire up at the top. So I'm just going to make sure that this doesn't push over the front of the bead. Get that nice and straight, hold that firmly in position, and I think we'll go for one more wrap and draw the tail to the rear of the design. Now you can go for an open and closable loop. When you're making a pendant like this, I imagine that you probably wouldn't wear something like this for day-to-day activities. It's slightly more flashy. I'm going to show you an option to make this a wrapped loop, but in my design here I made an open and closable pendant. So let's just open this one out, and you could interchange if you wanted to. Let's get the necklace out of the way. So what we might do is add this one onto the necklace in a minute when we're done, and you can see which one you prefer the look of. So because we've done as many wraps up at the top as we wanted to, I'll flip that to what I've decided is the rear of the design. Trim the excess away quite closely. Look twice, cut once. My nan always said that. She liked to make dresses and things. And then I'm just going to make sure that everything is super smooth and there's nothing sticking up. Just make sure that that is sitting correctly. Let's look at the rear of the design. So the cut end is an area that you just want to be as smooth as possible. So ensuring that your circle of wire, or your half circle of wire rather, is kept safely on the outside of that bead. If you very, very softly turn those flat facing pliers in the same direction as the wire is moving, you'll be able to smooth that end down. Now if you want to make a wrapped loop, you will obviously need to add this directly into the necklace. So I've got a piece of stunt chain here. I didn't have any of the paperclip chain in Holly Jolly left, but I do have some large paperclip chain here to show you how to add this design into your chain. Let me just grab some bail makers. Oh no, I've got my little memory wire pliers. So this is the front. What we're going to do is push a forwards bend at the top of that little coil of wire. We're going to create a round form, draw that wire all the way around so that you've got that rounded section. Give that a gentle squish just around the round part. Open it up as if you're opening up a jump ring, so you can see that gap, that space. And then we're going to pop that in the middle section of your chain. So let's just pop that through like so. You can close that up by hand. 18 gauge is perfectly pliable like that. And what we're going to do is to wrap this small tail of wire over the top of those first wraps we created a moment ago. So you can push that all the way around. I'll tell you what we'll do actually, we'll add a coil here. You could wrap the entirety of your tail of wire until it completely covers that little coil, but I think actually I'd like to see a coil on the front here, a freestanding coil. So we're going to rotate those pliers around until we get the start of a round form. Switch over to those flat facing pliers. Once you've mastered opened and closable loops, wrapped loops as we've just done, and coils, you can pretty much make most wire jewellery. Those are your key skills to learn. So that's your focal section that we've created now. So if I grab in a couple of smaller pieces of wire, one of them's an offcut from what we were just working on. Let's open this section up. Now what I did with my Holly Jolly chain is I made sure that I had a central piece of chain, and what happens is your focal bead can create that oval to hang down in a slightly different way. So you can either allow the necklace to sit with the bar going across, or you can use the design like so. And what we will then do is add supplementary beads. Now for my demonstration piece, I alternated between the crystal, which is a, let me just get the proper description, Czech fire polish in 8mm garnet, and then I alternated with Czech 8mm garnet pearls. So these are a glass pearl, and they are utterly gorgeous. It's almost a very, very deep, sultry burgundy colour, and I really like how those team together with that holly jolly. But I'm going to show you that technique. It is a little basic coil down at the bottom of the section. So I have around about 3 inches, and again we're working with that 18 gauge wire. So I'm trying to make the designs that I share with you here as simplistic as possible in terms of what you need to add, and you've also got all of those details on all of the products we're using today. There's the Holly Jolly paperclip, you've got the garnets in pearl and fire polish, and you've also got that fabulous window box in red. So we're going to start. You could use round nose pliers, you could use the smallest section on your multi-step bail makers, or you could be a cheat like me and grab your memory wire pliers. If you make almost all of a circular form, you can see how I stop before I get there. The reason I stop before completing that circle is now I can push the wire down against the cut end, and as I very gently start to rotate around, you get a slightly rounder beginning to your open coil. So I've left a gap in the bottom there. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. I quite like it, and I'll explain another reason why I like having that opening in the centre of the coil in a moment. So once you've wrapped twice around, you've got 2 rotations of wire. I'm going to pop those pliers in again and just pull that wire away so that you get a lollipop effect. Just going to give that a quick straighten to make sure that my beads go on smoothly. As I explained at the beginning of today's video, the hole that you find in the little garnet coloured pearls, they are slightly tighter than the crystal beads. So you may need to just take a second to work that bead along and then just push it down to the base. So if you want to do the design as I have done it, you can interchange between those garnet pearls and the fire polish. I'll demonstrate once with the pearl, and then I'll repeat the design with the fire polish just there. So once you have got your bead in position down against that double spiral, what we're going to do is protect that bead, pull the wire forwards, not quite a right angle but close enough, and then we're going to make quite a large size round form. So I'm going to use the larger size on those memory wire pliers and just rotate that wire around. So you can see we've got the first half already done. Draw the wire over, and you can see we're going to cut away around about 1 inch, so you can use little scraps of wire as well. Trim the flush side of your flush cutters down to the angle change point. Grab your flat or your chain nose pliers. Make sure that that is a complete circle as much as you possibly can. Give it a quick squish for luck. That keeps it nice and strong. Hello, Sarah, darling. How are you? Robin and Debbie says hello also. Hello to you, my darlings. So once you've given that a quick squish, it's a little bit stronger. Again, as if you're opening a jump ring, just open that up. So I'm demonstrating just with the length of paperclip chain I had available. And what I'm going to do is just slide that into position, and on my piece that I made ahead of time, I left a space of 1 complete link in between each bead that I added. So if I just pop that into the link and then close that design up like so, give it a quick squeeze. Excuse me. I'm so sorry about that. That came out of nowhere. So that's how you add on your little beads to the design. Now, 2 things I want to show you. Let me just grab that bead, that necklace. In fact, I'm just going to very quickly put it back together. The one that we disassembled a moment ago. Let's find that central point. There it is. So let's put that necklace statement section back in the middle. Close that up. If I put this to one side for a moment and put the demonstration piece down on the board. One of the reasons that I chose to use a bead and then leave a space is because it means that the links sit flatter on the bead links, and then you get one of the links in opposition. So when it sits on the neckline, it feels really smooth and beautiful. There will be a photograph uploaded of this as a still that you'll be able to look at a bit more closely if you wish to, and I'll certainly add one in the comments of the video on Facebook. The other thing I wanted to show you, if I just draw this one back into position, I'm just going to show you the same technique again for that second lollipop type effect. So this was an offcut, so I'm just trimming the end away to make sure it's smooth and easy to use. I'm going to recreate that lollipop effect. So turn your pliers, it could be round nose, it could be bail makers. Don't create the complete circle because it means that you can just push that into the wire, and as you move around it will be a little bit smoother. So I've already shown you how to add that into your chain. There's something I want to show you as a supplementary design, because I really am enjoying your takes on the designs that we designers show you. If I could say the word design one more time. Oh my goodness. Let's turn that wire away so you get that lollipop effect. I just want to show you an alternative design that you can add in and enjoy using in any of your jewellery making. So let's add in that fire polish. And another thing that I tend to do is I have all of my spirals on the right hand side moving clockwise, and all of the ones on the left hand side moving anti-clockwise. Let me show you what I mean just down here. So you can see that they're in a direct mirror opposition to each other. You don't have to do that. A spiral's a spiral at the end of the day. I just like the attention to detail. Something else that you can do though is, let's take that forwards facing bend. Again, we're going to respect that bead, cover it up with a thumbnail, push the wire forwards, and then we will use that little memory wire pliers, which I thoroughly recommend for everyday use, not just for memory wire. Create that large round form, and again we're going to look twice, cut once, and then we're going to just close that up. Give that a quick squish. I'm sorry, the chat just went straight off the window. Give me a second. Sandra says, I've never used chat before, but I love watching you. That's so kind of you. Thank you ever so much for joining us. Really appreciate your company. That's wonderful. Thank you ever so much. Lollipops are a snap with the bail maker pliers. They absolutely are. Let me just grab you the 6-step bail makers. What you'll find is that the number 1 pin is very similar to the smallest pin, and the number 3 pin is very similar to the larger pin. So either or. I like these because they're diminutive, but these give me so many more options. They are an absolute must. And I must say, I'm really enjoying these wooden mandrels as well. They are fabulous to use. So if you wanted to change up how this design looks, as well as chopping and changing the order of the beads that you're using, let's just open this one up. It's quite a large loop, and what you can do is stack a lollipop on a lollipop and create your own chain drop. So just that, a couple of times as a pair of earrings, is really lovely. Let me just bring in the main piece from today's demonstration. If I scooch that over, just need to make sure that you can still see that. Let's bring this one into position. If you can imagine this one, but the first 3 loops on either side, then you double up, and going from the Garnet fire polish down to another one of those lovely pearls, and then from the opposing basically, so fire polish to pearl and then pearl to fire polish. I think that would be a really beautiful addition to the design. So I hope that you've enjoyed that one. I hope that you've got something to take away from the techniques we've discussed. Absolutely, as a pair of earrings, if you just master the coil and an open and closable loop, that's an absolute winner by itself. You can obviously change up how you use those beads. Let me show you what I've got left. So I've got those 2 little beads left as well. From the window box, we have got this, and we have got this. We also had the toggle clasp. You have got the flowers. You have got 2 of the matte and 2 of the beautiful round flat. You've got these 4 giant rice beads, which are wonderful. You've got opaque and translucent, and you've got these fabulous golds in there as well. So the window bead boxes, I'm absolutely delighted and actually really impressed with them. So let me just pop you back up here. See if I can take this one off, because I can't remember what the clasp is like. That was lucky. This was made with the Renaissance Rebirth collection. If you like what you see there, check out the Renaissance collection while you're at it. But let's have a look and see what you think when it's on. If I can operate a clasp. It's not really the best top to be wearing with such an elegant design, but how it feels on the body I just can't describe. I love the dangles, and they're really well behaved. They sit beautifully. You give them a shimmy, you get all of that sound, and then maybe we'll make some supplementary little earring drops instead. You've got lots and lots to work with all of the just magnificent red beads that we have available at the moment. I've linked all of those products in the video description here on Facebook today. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to reach out to Jessie James Beads. If you have a question for me, my name is Jem Hawkes. You can find me here in the conversation on this Facebook Live video, or you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, even on Threads and TikTok. I'm rubbish at TikTok though, I don't know really how that works. You can always tag me if you have any questions at all. I'm going to sign off and love you and leave you. Thank you very much for hanging out with me today, and I do hope that you've enjoyed the presentation with the beautiful Jessie James Beads red collections. I look forward to seeing you very, very soon. Bye for now.